Yo, what's up, what's up? Welcome back to my page. I am back at it with another video. Before we get started, I just want to say thank you guys for coming in and checking out my videos, for liking it, for sharing it, commenting, or whatever the case may be. So I just want to thank you for that. And I also want to take my time to encourage you guys to keep going strong in the midst of this pandemic that we are going through as a country and as a nation. Whatever state you are in, some states are more open, some states are still closed. You know, restaurants are still at 50% capacity or just dining outside. So, you know, I encourage you guys to keep going strong. I know a lot of you are probably without a job or just relying on government assistance. You know, I just pray for you, for your families. I just pray for you guys, and that God may give you strength, you know, to all of you to continue. But just know that this is only for a little bit of time. This is not going to last forever. So, you know, do your best to be patient. You know, I'm thinking about you guys, and I think about this all the time, you know, for my own life and just the world in general. So stay strong, guys. All right. So let's talk about the next topic, all right? Today, or at this moment, we're going to be talking about what I wish I knew about money in my 20s, all right? I am 33 years old. I'll be 34 on September 20th. So we're gonna get into it. We're going to be talking about money again, right? What I wish I knew about money in my 20s. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the importance of budgeting. All right? Listen, let me tell you something. In my whole entire life, I never knew anything about money. My parents, for whatever reason, never taught me anything about finances. The most that I was taught by my father was when I was in the process of getting my first car, was to save a certain amount for a down payment. That's the most I knew about finances, you know, and I was actually successful at it. I got my first car back in 2008, or 2008, you know, but besides that, I didn't know anything about money. Learn how to budgeting, anything about credit cards or investing or anything like that, you know, but now I have that privilege to know what budgeting is. And let me tell you, I got married on December 29th of 2018. I never budgeted until the day or after we got married, my wife and I. That is the first time I started making a budget. And it was weird. It wasn't as easy as it is in my mind because I've never done it before. You know, I'm already 33 years old. But let me tell you guys, budgeting is vital in your life. All right, budgeting is super important. Every single month, or right before the month ends, my wife and I, we create a budget on a specific app called Every Dollar. All right, and it's actually Every Dollar is an app that came out by Dave Ramsey and his team. You know, now you can use different apps. I think they have Mint. I use Mint, but not for budgeting. You can just do old school, write it down. You know, you can make you go on Microsoft Excel and create your own budget there. But nevertheless, whatever works for you, budgeting is key, because if you do not budget, your money is going to be going everywhere, and by the end of the month or by the end of the week, you realize that your money is gone, and you just don't realize where it has went. You know, and you want to make sure that you have a budget in place. You want to make sure that you every dollar that you have, give it a name. Where is it going to go? Is it going to go towards your debt? Is it going to go towards your saving? Is it going to go, maybe you want to do some self-care and go to a massage therapist, or you want to go to a salon, or you want to take out, you know, go on a date, and you have money set apart for that. Maybe you want to invest in buying a bicycle, or whatever the case may be, as long as you give it a name. Because let me tell you something, if you don't budget, or let's say you do make a budget, right? and you give every dollar a name, what's going to happen is when you go to a store and let's say you get tempted to buy something, because it was on sale, originally it was $1,000 and now it went to $800, all right? You paid $800 for it, all right? But in reality, no, you spent $800 more than what you budget on because it was not in your budget. So we gotta be wise, we gotta be strong when it comes to temptation of buying things, especially stuff that is on sale. Don't get trapped. If it's not in your budget, don't buy it. All right? So that is my number one, learning how to budget. I wish I knew that in my 20s. The second point is using credit cards and student loans. Man, this is a big one. I know I'm gonna get pushback on this one. It's okay. I get it all the time. Specifically for the credit cards, right? Credit cards, listen, I never owned a credit card in my life until a few years ago, right? But I wish I was educated on credit cards. A lot of times, people think credit cards is free money, all right? Credit cards are not free money. Credit card is money belongs to the credit card company or the bank or wherever you got your credit card from, all right? Because once you spend the money, you have to, or once you use your card, you swipe it, you need to pay it back at the end of the month. Now, most people, they do a lot of damage to themselves with credit cards. Yes, there are people who are responsible, who pay their credit card right then and then if they have the money, especially. A lot of people, they just pay at the end of the month, and most people make minimum payments, which is the worst that you can do. You do not want to make minimum payments on credit card unless that's your only debt. If that's not your only debt and you have a smaller debt, then yeah, make minimum payments and focus on the smallest debt. But making minimum payments will eat you up because of interest. All right, depending on how much of the interest, that's what's gonna be. You're gonna be paying more than the minimum payment or in the long run. So I wish I knew that about credit cards even a few years ago, because I kept making minimum payments and I was never able to get out of it for something so small like $300 or $500. Like really? I could have paid that a long time ago, but I was focusing on making minimum payments. So with that being said, my wife and I, we don't have credit cards anymore. We paid off our last 2 credit cards during the COVID shutdown, and I thank God that we paid it off. And you know what else we did too? And I know you guys would be like, no, don't do that, is we close our account. Yes, we close our credit card account. We don't need it, all right? Yes, you're gonna be talking about making sure your credit is fine, but what about your credit? You can't buy a house, this and that. You can't buy a house with a 0 credit score. That's for another topic for another day. But at the end of the day, we don't need to worry about building credit, because for me to build credit, I have to get myself in debt, and I'm not gonna get in there. I'm responsible. I pay that off every month, but why flirt with fire? I'm not gonna get into that. I'm just not. You know, you can say whatever you want to say. You could go against it. I'm just not going to use credit cards anymore. There's no point. I buy everything in cash. All right. My next credit card and student loan. Again, student loans. I wish I was never making minimum payments before. Listen, I got into some student loan debt back in 2011, and I finally paid off my student loan just I think a month or 2 months ago. Something that I could have paid off in a year or less than a year if I had a good financial stewardship and I budgeted my money correctly, or budgeted period. I wish I would have known that about student loans as well. Again, because the interest goes high as well. My third point is saving money and building an emergency fund. This is a big one. All right, guys? I posted something earlier from Dave Ramsey. It says 47% of Americans have less than $1,000 saved for an emergency fund. Can you believe that? That's almost half. of Americans in this country that has an emergency fund of whatever the amount is, all right, for $1,000, specifically I should say. Now, the problem is that most people don't have an emergency fund for many different reasons, or they think they have an emergency fund, and that emergency fund for them is a credit card, all right? Credit cards are not emergency, or it's not an emergency fund, because if something happens and you don't have cash or savings account for your emergency, you're gonna have to use that card, that credit card, and then you're gonna have to pay back. And God forbid something else happens in that same month or even that same week, and you have to pay that back as well. But now you're stuck, you're more in a hole because you can't pay it off, and you're gonna take a long time to pay it off. Very short story. Before my wife and I moved into this apartment that we're at right now, back in September, a year ago pretty much, it was crazy, man. We rented a U-Haul truck, and you know, we went to IKEA that morning, you know, to pick up a big bookshelf that we ordered, you know, and we paid that in cash, by the way. And we went to go pick it up, and mind you, I haven't driven a U-Haul truck in a long time, right? And on top of that, you know, I was emotional, I was nervous, I was excited, you know, moving into a new place, finally, and a bigger place, you know. So when I drove to IKEA, you know, I did not realize that we were not supposed to drive inside the parking lot because of the, I don't know what you call that thing on the top, right? And the problem was that she was on the phone talking to, I think, the car dealership, and I was listening to her speaking, making sure we got everything right, but I wasn't focusing when I was driving. And as soon as I drove, oh my goodness, I hit the top part on the right side of the hood of my car, of the U-Haul truck, and I got so nervous. I pulled back into the parking lot outside, and I destroyed that whole thing. Long story short, I went back to the U-Haul to drop it off at the end of the day, and the guy looked at it. It was a new guy. He looked at it. He just made a face. I'm like, oh boy. And, you know, and I was being very honest about it, and I told him, yeah, this is what happened. You know, it was my fault, etc. And he said, he looked it up at how much I would have to pay. It would have been $2,300 to fix that thing. But I had insurance on the U-Haul, and I only had to pay $1,200. But mind you, I was there for 2 hours because he was calling the store manager, one of the store managers, to come in that day or that time, you know, to get the problem fixed. And, you know, and I don't know where he was. I think he was coming from a far place and whatnot. And I went, and, you know, I was waiting patiently. You know, the guy was very honorable. The guy was very respectful towards me. And, you know, he noticed that I was being respectful because he said most customers would not wait. Most customers would try to lie or would try to come up with a way to escape, and, you know, whatever. Not me. You know I messed up. I got to take responsibility for it. So when the owner, one of the managers came, he was doing the crazy thing. This is all God. He was doing whatever he can to lower that bill, right? And long story short, it went from $1,200 to $936. But guess what? We had $1,000 of an emergency fund. All right, we didn't have to worry and think of and find ways to try to pay that debt. But we had that emergency fund. We didn't use a credit card. We didn't have to ask somebody to borrow money at all. So I am super thankful for that. That is why an emergency fund is super important, guys. Have that saved up and know what is an emergency, right? Buying a new sofa is not an emergency fund, all right? So that was a learning experience. And as much as painful it was that I had to pay $936, but I still felt good the fact that we had the money to pay for it, all right? Then the fourth one, I have two more, guys. The fourth one is spending money on items I did not need, all right? One of the things that I spent money on in the past was an iPad. Over the years, I realized that I did not need an iPad. All right, I barely did. I used it, but I didn't use it as much. I already had a Mac. I already had my iPhone. At that time, I didn't have an iPhone. I had a Samsung, but then I switched to iPhone. But I didn't use the iPad as much, so I spent that money for no reason. I didn't need it, to be honest, alright? So, another thing was buying too much clothes. There was no point of me buying clothes, or a lot of clothes, or more than enough that I already had. I have a rule for my own life when it comes to clothes. And I live in Florida, so we don't really get winter, you know, except for you Floridians out here. Y'all believe winter, y'all get cold out here. It does not get cold in Miami. But I have a rule. I have a 90-day rule. If I go into my closet and I see clothes there that have not been used for 90 days, I give it away. There's no point. I'm holding up space for no reason. So that is another thing too. Alright, and the last point is cooking instead of buying food. Listen, y'all, I love to eat. Alright, I can eat anything. I have a fast metabolism, even though I kind of gain weight on my stomach. But I can eat. I love to eat. And man, let me tell you, I lived with my parents. My parents, more my mom used to cook almost every day. There was always food on the table. Alright? But I've always went out to eat and buy food anyway, junk food, especially in the nighttime. Now, I'm not saying that there's nothing wrong to go out and eat. There's nothing wrong to once in a while go and buy junk food. I eat, you know, McDonald's or whatever it is that you like to eat. What I'm trying to say is that I used to spend money every other night. You know, $15, you know, $12, $10. But by the end of the month, it will add up. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, dang, yo, I can't believe I spent all that money, but then I'm eating at home as well. Why? Right? Why? So, for those of you that just love to spend money on food, buying out, when you know that you don't have to, when you know that you can just cook at home, right now for my wife and I, we shop at Costco, we shop at Publix, right? And we buy things in bulk. And when we first got married, we used to spend $400 a month on groceries. You know how much we spend now on groceries? Close to $300, maybe like $260, $270. All right, we reduce what we eat. You know, we don't really eat out as much. Sometimes we do, but specifically in my 20s, I used to eat out a lot, man. Just by myself, I go. For those that live in Jersey, you know, I used to go to Banana King all the time. I used to go to the Colombian spot, Noche de Colombia. I used to go to whatever it is that I was craving, and it was too much money spending on food. And listen, guys, you can be better at it when it comes to your finances. So those are the things that I wanted to share with you guys. I hope that you guys can be encouraged by this and you can get better at when it comes to money and knowing how to budget. And if you have questions about budgeting, holler at me. I can guide you. If you have questions about getting out of debt, I can guide you as well. You know, make sure you like my video, make sure you share it, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and stay tuned for the next video, guys. Peace.